Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. This is Jordan Chariton, live from New York with Status Coup. Status Coup.
Hello. This
Are
is
we
Jordan
live? We are live. I have one person watching. Thank you, Pirate Alex. Yo. Seven people watching. Fantastic. If you haven't noticed, we made a slight change to the channel today. You might be watching on Periscope. You might be watching on Facebook. But if you're watching on YouTube, we've officially turned this baby over and made it Status Coup instead of Jordan Chariton Reports. This is the network that we are building, and that's why we are moving the YouTube channel over to Status Coup, because I believe, and Jen believes, and Ty believes, that we need a coup d'etat of the status quo in this country. That's what I'm about, and that's what we're going to be doing. So, the website is almost ready. We're gearing up to launch that next week, so that's exciting. But we wanted to just seamlessly move over the YouTube channel today. So don't be alarmed. It's still me. As we go, we will still be moving over and making my Patreon status coup, as well as obviously the website.
We did make the Patreon.
Oh, so the Patreon is now what? Patreon.com/status coup? Yep. So YouTube is status coup. Patreon is now status coup. So very, very exciting. And I will continue pushing the GoFundMe as we go throughout this broadcast. We are now at 201 people. 201 people have contributed. So super excited about that. We're at $12,277. And I'm already discussing with some folks on the ground our next story to travel thanks to your contributions. So keep it coming. I will push that as we go. But we're at 201 in a month, 201 people, 12,277. Thank you. And a little bit later, I'll have Jen come on and showcase the fantastic Status Coup shirt for ladies, the V-neck, which you could get if you donate $100. You get a shirt or a hat. 127 get you both. Now, and share this on Facebook, because Facebook don't like making people know I'm live. There's so much to discuss. I don't know where to start. I did the whole Native American thing with Elizabeth Warren yesterday. I also interviewed Lee Merritt. He is the attorney for Botham Jean. I was in Dallas last week covering that story. Botham Jean, the 26-year-old black man murdered on September 6th by a white police officer that just showed up to his apartment, thought it was her apartment. So I'm going to play part of that interview during this broadcast. I also have an update for you on another case that we covered down there on O'Shea Terry. He was a 24-year-old black man, literally shot 5 times as he was fleeing from police. I called the Arlington Police Department yesterday. They sent me quite the fakakta email. If you're Jewish, you know what I mean, fakakta. And I also spoke with them on the phone, so I'm going to show you that. But we have to start. Did you think after Jeff Bezos basically bowed down to Bernie Sanders that was going to be it? Did you think? Oh, I forgot. This is a super chat. So in addition to the GoFundMe, you could leave contributions in the super chat. Keep me fed and clothed. Somebody said, you sell stickers? I'd love to spread them. We're not selling stickers. We're giving them away, baby. How do they get the stickers?
They'll get a little goodie bag at $50 or more, and that'll include stickers.
All right. If you donate $50 or more, you get a Status Coup swag bag, a mini Status Coup swag bag. $200 gets you the full Status Coup swag bag. But for $50, you're getting a swag bag with a few goodies, including a Status Coup sticker. And we got in the first batch of shirts yesterday.
And more today.
We're expecting more today. And
Got them already.
oh, we did. We got more today? See, I was at physical therapy. I missed all of it. But we're going to start, not me, you're going to start mailing it out tomorrow.
Well, let's wait for the hats to come.
People are very upset. They don't like that I'm talking to you off screen. They want you on screen. I know you're working, so we'll bring her on. Yeah, see, Phil says show the woman.
Well, once you're ready for me to show my shirt.
Okay. Let's get the audience up. Then we'll have. I don't want to like. You're not like coming on to model. I don't want to say that. You're coming on to present
Just show
the shirt, the V-neck girl shirt. And I did have some gentlemen email me yesterday. Email Jordan@protonmail.com, and they donated $100, and then they said they're going to donate another $100 if they can get a V-neck for their significant other. I think that's a fantastic Valentine's Day gift. Several months before Valentine's Day, or maybe Christmas, Hanukkah. What else we got? You know, capitalism is alive with the status quo. Hey Joe, we need some seed money. Go easy on me, okay? I'm not a capitalist. I'm a socialist. Now, I don't believe in capitalism. It's neoliberal douchebaggery. So, if you thought that Bernie Sanders basically making Jeff Bezos bow down and raise the minimum wage of Amazon workers to $15 an hour, a huge accomplishment. Frankly, Bernie Sanders has accomplished more since he lost the presidential election than the entire Democratic Party has accomplished, maybe in the last, since Obamacare. I mean, I have my gripes with Obamacare, but it was an accomplishment. But other than that, Bernie Sanders making the richest man in the world raise minimum wage to Amazon workers, pretty damn good accomplishment if you ask me. So, you would think, oh, okay, Bernie said nice things about Jeff Bezos after he raised the minimum wage. Jeff Bezos kissed back on Twitter and thanked Bernie Sanders. All is well in the world. And now Bernie Sanders could move on to, going after McDonald's and the Walmart and all these people. Well, you would be incorrect, because Jeff Bezos owns a newspaper, if you want to call it that, called the Washington Post. Their slogan is "Democracy dies in the darkness." And if you've been paying attention the last few years, the Washington Post attacked Bernie Sanders 16 negative stories in a day during the 2016 campaign. I mean, that's pretty hard to do. Like Fox News, they used to do like 16 negative stories in an hour on Obama, but 16 negative stories for like a quasi-reputable paper, that's a lot. So I did the math, and I was thinking before Amazon increased the minimum wage, Washington Post had like one negative story per month, I would say, on Bernie Sanders. And when I say I did the math, I didn't really do any math. I'm just talking shit. But just my guess. The Washington Post was doing about one negative story on Bernie Sanders a month. Now I'm going to guess it's closer to once a week. It's about once a week now. So obviously Jeff Bezos, because you don't get to that level of richness without being a colossal narcissist, possibly a megalomaniac, definitely a social Darwinist. But Jeff Bezos did not raise the minimum wage because he's a good guy. Jeff Bezos didn't raise the minimum wage because he cares if his workers can eat or feed their children. He did so because it was an untenable position. Bernie Sanders was so eloquently and efficiently shaming him. But now the Washington Post, who claims, oh no, we have nothing, Jeff Bezos might own us, but we don't do Jeff Bezos bidding. No. Now I'm thinking I'm going to start really clocking it. I even bit my tongue and I purchased a Washington Post digital subscription because I want to monitor. I think the Washington Post and the New York Times, if Bernie Sanders runs, it's going to be like 2016 times 2. They are going to double down and triple down on the Bernie hate, and it's already beginning to start, so I want to observe it and make sure you guys are informed about what's going on. Because one thing I think was pretty much lacking in 2016, it's one thing to protest political causes. There wasn't a lot of protests outside the Washington Post or the New York Times. There was one, I believe, outside CNN in Los Angeles. But you got to put some shame and pressure on these media outlets that are actually doing public relations for the Democratic Party. Geraldo Peralta, let's welcome their hatred. That's funny. I just said to Jen before I went live, FDR, the only thing to fear is fear itself.
Very true.
And Gerardo, true sentiment. So I'm going to read you this article. But tell me if you see something that's just stunning right out of the gate. Look at this. Democrats won't defeat Trump by becoming the Trumps of the left, with an image of Bernie Sanders. So right there, and this isn't the first time the Washington Post has done this. Right there, forget what the story is about. A lot of people, honestly, on Twitter or elsewhere, literally browse a headline see a picture, maybe scan a story for like a sentence, and move on. That's what I do half the time. I don't read every single article because my brain would be an aneurysm by 11 a.m. There's too much. So most people just read a headline, a picture, maybe a sentence, and decide if they want to keep going. So you got the Washington Post here essentially equating Bernie Sanders with Donald Trump. So who's this by? Who's this author? Max Boot. Max Boot. Well, let me tell you about Max Boot. Max Boot. Max Boot is a major neocon. And he was he might as well have been he was a Republican, excuse me. He was a Republican. And he was cheerleading for the Iraq War like nobody's damn business. Like, on the same level with Bill Kristol. On the same level with Bill Kristol back in those days. So like Hillary, he saw Jesus and he's atoned for his sins. And as Glenn Greenwald always points out and others, in the pundit world, there is no penalty for being wrong in a way that gets hundreds of thousands of people killed around the world, being wrong in a way that creates ISIS. That actually, instead of getting you thrown off cable news and getting thrown off, writing columns for the Washington Post, you get more contracts, you get more airtime, and you get more columns. It's really backwards. It's really backwards. See, I was taught, I only took one journalism class, but I was taught if you get facts wrong, if you put out propaganda, if you mess up and have to issue major corrections constantly, you'll lose your credibility. That's what I was taught. By the way, I'm thinking about starting my own journalism training program. If anybody's interested in journalism and you want to be mentored by little old me, let me know. Thinking of starting that, but we'll talk about that another time. But this guy is colossally wrong. He's been pushing Russiagate like nobody's business. And what do you know? He gets booked on CNN and MSNBC and all over the place because he's a Russia hysteria agent. So I'm going to read you just a little bit about this because I really can't stomach it. But it's so ridiculous. Students of civil wars know they follow a well-established dynamic. A sect radicalized by militant leaders commits atrocities against another sect. The targeted group retaliates with its own massacres and thus begins a cycle of violence. Think Serbs first Bosniaks in the former Yugoslavia, Sunnis first Shiites in Iraq, Hutus first Tutsis in Rwanda. I fear that a similar process of mutual radicalization is occurring in America, minus, mercifully, widespread physical violence. Political attacks such as the death of Heather Heyer in Charlottesville last year, or the fight that broke out in New York City last week between progressive protesters and a right-wing hate group called the Proud Boys, are still isolated occurrences. For now. President Trump is the prime culprit. He claims Democrats are traitors who want to open the borders to murderers and rapists who perpetrated an evil hoax to stop Supreme Court nomination Brett Kavanaugh and who are determined to turn America into another Venezuela, a bankrupt socialist dictatorship. While accusing the opposition of mob rule, he has incited its followers to scream "lock her up," first against Hillary Clinton and now against Dianne Feinstein, neither of whom have been charged with any crime. Dianne Feinstein should be charged with a crime, so should Hillary Clinton, but I digress. Some of Trump's mini-me's are even worse. Scott Wagner, the GOP candidate for governor in Pennsylvania, threatened his Democratic opponent, Governor Tom Wolf. "You better put a catcher's mask on your face because I'm going to stomp all over your face with golf spikes." Then he gets into Stephen Miller and Ted Cruz have been hounded at restaurants. Oh my Lord, they've been hounded at restaurants. To stop Kavanaugh, some Democrats weren't satisfied with citing Christine Blasey Ford's highly credible testimony. They also embraced unsubstantiated charges from a woman represented by headline-chasing attorney Michael Avenatti, who claimed that Kavanaugh had been complicit in gang rapes in high school. So, moving off of Bernie for a second, I'm going to get to the Bernie part because this guy is, excuse me, YouTube, a fucking idiot. Take my money, but you won't take my soul. Thank you, OTR Tucker, getting the super chat going, $5. Trump hates Bezos. Trump loves Saudis. Post columnist murdered by Saudis. Trump says nobody knows what happened to him. I'm going to get to it. I'm getting to it. Covered that a little bit yesterday, but I'll speak about that a little more. Thanks for the $5. So he's talking about that. I think he's talking about Julie Swetnick, who was the third woman to make an accusation against Brett Kavanaugh. Didn't make an accusation that Brett Kavanaugh himself had assaulted her, but did make an accusation that she saw him on a line that was going into a room where a woman was getting gang raped. But when you say unsubstantiated claims, yeah, the FBI wouldn't talk to her, and they wouldn't talk to all the people that she said she had to corroborate. So how could you say unsubstantiated claims? This is the stupidity of the mainstream media. You know what? The FBI could have decided if she has credibility, but if you don't talk to her, and if you don't talk to not just her, but several other people that she gave their names, and the FBI wouldn't talk to them, they were themselves trying to reach out to the FBI because the FBI wouldn't talk to them. So spare me your bullshit, Max Boot, about, unsubstantiated claims. There's a thing called you can't find what you're not looking for. I digress. Moving back on to Bernie. So Mr. Boot has a problem with the Democrats or progressives chasing Ted Cruz in restaurants, and apparently Michael Avenatti and all this. He said, Max Boot said, I got a taste of this leftist anger when I went on NPR's On Point last Thursday as part of my book tour to discuss my disenchantment with the right. One caller insisted that Trump wasn't another Hitler, he was worse. Another listener emailed that I could never be forgiven for being a conservative. Quote, I truly hope you die in agony as a result of the climate change you promoted. 2 days later, The Intercept, the Breitbart of the left. Can you believe this guy? The Intercept, the Breitbart of the left, wrote that I should be permanently exiled from the sanctuary of politics because of my now recanted support for the Iraq War, a position I shared with then Senators Joe Biden, Hillary Clinton, and Charles E. Schumer, among other Democrats. Oh my God. This is the arrogance. This is the arrogance and the out of touchness of these idiots. First of all, most people with a brain, with a heart, with some empathy, actually think if you want to run for office, it's a disqualifying position if you were for the Iraq War. You could call us, the progressive purity test, but I think that's a disqualifying position, especially if you want to run for president. But if you want to be a pundit on TV or you want to write a column, yeah. When you don't do your homework, when you go around with dangerous groupthink that leads to almost 4,000 American soldiers being killed, their living victims, meaning their families that have to go on without them, the hundreds of thousands of people that have been killed and wounded in Iraq, the destabilization in the Middle East, the creation of ISIS and countless other things, yeah, I do think the Breitbart of the left, which is ridiculous. The Intercept has won many awards. Sure, they've made mistakes too, but I think their reporting is spot on for the most part. You should be tossed out of, quote, the sanctuary of politics, just like Hillary Clinton shouldn't have run for president. Sorry, when you've this thought that give me a mulligan. Just give me a mulligan. Give me a do-over. I'll get it better next time. Usually, this mentality of war, a lot of times for political reasons. Hillary Clinton voted for the Iraq War for political reasons. Not because she, in her heart, thought it was the best thing. Well, she probably did because she's a warmonger too. But you shouldn't get a mulligan. If you are paid to give your opinion, or if you are paid to be a reporter, just because you're giving opinion doesn't mean you don't have to have a set of facts that are correct. I always have said the criteria that I rate myself isn't whether I'm neutral. It's not whether I'm openly progressive or neutral. It's whether are my facts correct? Are my facts right? It doesn't matter if I'm progressive, conservative, or an underwater seal. Are my facts right? Most people actually appreciate it when someone's open and upfront about their ideology. And my ideology informs what I cover or not. It doesn't inform my facts. But if I continually came to you every day and reported stuff that wasn't true, or I gave you opinions that ended up being based on things that weren't true, well, no, I shouldn't have a camera on me. Now, if I royally fuck up once, which has happened, and I correct it, and we move forward and I'm more careful, maybe I'll mess up again in my career. But there's proportion for everything. But if I came to you, I wasn't old enough at that point, but if I was coming to you live every day, pushing this Iraq war, either as a reporter or a commentator, yeah, you should kind of be pushed out. You should. Sorry. So, let's get to the Bernie part, which was the most appalling of this. Let's get to that. So, he says, this is the same kind of blind fury that drives so many Trump followers, and some leftist leaders are as willing as Trump to pour fuel on the partisan fire. When the administration began locking up the children of undocumented immigrants, truly an outrage, Congresswoman Maxine Waters said protesters should harass cabinet members whenever they go out in public. Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with her on a lot, but I think they should. Short of violence, these are public servants. They should have to answer to the public. Is that so radical? I don't think so. As long as you're not physically violent with people, hey, you sign up to be a public servant, hey, you sell out your constituents pretty much every day for donors, yeah, you're not welcome to your little cocoon where you don't get confronted. Those days are over because more people are awoke. Now, let's move on to Bernie. Here's what else the new Democratic Party is about. Promoting impractical proposals with little analysis or detail. Senator Bernie Sanders advocates breaking up the big banks, but can't answer basic questions about his plan. That's not true. Nor has he offered any realistic way to pay for his grandiose ideas, which include Medicare for all, free tuition at public universities, and a federal jobs guarantee. No, he has offered ways to pay for it. You just don't like it because it doesn't fit with your Democratic consultants and keep the money flowing industrial complex. Yet these plans, the leftist version of build the wall and make Mexico pay for it, have been endorsed by leading Democratic presidential aspirants. Okay, so let's get this straight. Because you've already seen the Washington Post, even though the story didn't even get to Bernie Sanders until like 5 or 6 paragraphs in, tried to frame it as Bernie Sanders is the equivalent of Donald Trump. You see that? The story is not only about Bernie Sanders, but they made it seem like Bernie Sanders is the equivalent of Donald Trump. And to him, Trump trying to build a wall so that Mexicans can't get into the country. I mean, it's a wall of bigotry. That's not for security purposes, that wall. That's not for security purposes. That is to play into fascists. That is to play into anti-Mexican sentiment, anti-Muslim sentiment, and basically play into right-wing fascism and authoritarianism. So you're telling me a wall is comparable to is the wall that is extreme. So basically you're saying that Medicare for all is the same level of extremism as a wall to make sure Mexicans can't or other immigrants can't come into the country? You're telling me that free public college is extremism on the level of a fortress? Like the Washington Post actually has this guy writing columns. CNN, I believe, has him on as a contributor. This is the thought process of our media, of our pundits, of our political aides, and of our politicians. And they are really doing this to frame progressives and dominant public opinion as extreme. And they are also, they did this a little bit in 2016, but you start to see that they're trying to paint Bernie Sanders as being okay with mobs or being okay with riots, because that is how they are going to stir up the older neoliberal establishment vote to come out, because it ain't going to be Hillary Clinton, I don't think, against Bernie Sanders. It's the same formula, only double down and triple down. Sway Ocean, FYI, I have paid for 8 people to go to college. Wow. That's great. Were they your children? Some people down the block? Either way, that's really good. If you are interested, in contributing to the GoFundMe, I eventually want to have children and I need to pay for them to go to college. But, that's not exactly what the GoFundMe is for. The GoFundMe is so we can get back in the field and cover the real news that no one else is covering. We're going to continue posting more clips from our trip in Dallas. And after this, I'm going to play you part of my interview with Botham Jean's attorney. MacArthur Louisant, Jordan, do you support a cost of living check for the working poor and middle class? MacArthur Louisant, I support universal basic income, which that is one of the stories that I would like to go in the field and cover, because there's been some experiments with universal basic income. I actually know some documentary filmmakers who got a grant that allowed them to give, I believe it was $1,500 to $2,000 to about 20 people, and follow them over a course of, I believe, 2 years. And that I would love to show some of that and how it changed their life. So I believe in universal basic income. And you know who just talked about universal basic income? It's so funny. After Obama leaves office, now he's for Medicare for all. And he also introduced the idea of universal basic income. If only this guy got elected president and was there for 8 years, right? Unbelievable.
Are you ready for a commercial break so I can do other stuff?
Yes. So, bottom line, I'm not going to read you the rest of this story because it's ridiculous. Jeff Bezos was shamed by Bernie Sanders. Jeff Bezos raised the minimum wage of Amazon, but let me tell you something. He might have not had a conference call with his editors at the Washington Post, but you better damn believe that the Washington Post knows that the Amazon owner, Jeff Bezos, who signs their checks, ain't happy with Bernard Sanders. And there is a very clear directive. Don't forget about Bernie. Write some columns about him, distort your reporting about him, and go after Bernie more than anyone else. That's why I just bought a subscription to the Washington Post, so you don't have to read it. And I'm going to keep track of it, because if Bernie Sanders runs again, we are not going to let the Washington Post, the New York Times, and these public relations servants for the establishment and the status quo, I'm getting it confused, distort and destroy the progressive movement and progressive campaigns. Not going to happen anymore. And I'm going to fight it. OTR Tucker, $5 in the super chat. Sung to the tune, I write the songs. You break the news that makes the establishment cry. Send me that song. Can't wait. So in a commercial break, let's bring on my business partner, Jen. So she could show you some swag and tell you why you should contribute.
Okay. So this is
Wow, Sway Ocean, $99.99.
That's amazing, Sway Ocean. Thank you.
Sway, although you didn't contribute it to the GoFundMe,
No.
we're going to make an exception. Email jordan@protonmail.com. You'll get a shirt.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so this is the standard shirt. On the back.
Wait. Keep it up.
What?
Keep it up.
For how long?
And go backs.
See.
You only had the front up for a short time.
Oh, they have to catch it quick.
Very nice. Very nice. Okay.
Unless this is the girl shirt. It's just got a little V-neck,
Wait. Keep it up. People can't see.
They can see.
Very nice.
This is very awkward, everyone.
Very nice. Very nice.
But it's for a good reason, because the Status Quo GoFundMe is seed money so that we can go out into the field again. Jordan and Ty already have been in Dallas, and they want to go out more. Like they're itching already to go back and do more reporting. And yay, Sam thinks it looks good. Bill O'Reilly, this shirt's not for you. So this seed money is going to get us in the field. It's going to help us market this material, because we're up against a lot when it comes to marketing our stuff, getting our stuff out there. It really matters, and it's so amazing how many people have donated to the GoFundMe already. And actually, I'm kind of surprised. I knew people would be excited about the shirts, but people are like super into the shirts, and the hats will be here very soon. I got a notification that they'll be here soon. And the hats will be, what do you call it? Embroidered. So you'll have the embroidered Status Quo logo. And I also, for the mini swag bags, I've ordered some really cool things like I don't know. Should I even reveal what I've ordered?
Give them one.
They're like Status Quo bags. They're Status Quo travel cups.
Ooh.
They're Status Quo for the high rollers. There's a Status Quo backpack.
Wow.
So by high rollers, I mean those who donate $200 or more, because that's the
Swag bag.
big swag bag. It's a literal bag.
But we'll give a
full
mini one.
of swag.
A mini
Yes.
one for 50.
So mini one for 50. We'll send stickers and stuff out to people as well. But in the mini swag bag, there's going to be some cool little stuff. For $100 t-shirt or hat, $127 both. $200, you just get the whole world, man. You get the whole Status Quo world.
Exactly.
So that's it.
Fantastic.
Again, this is the girl shirt. I'm told I'm supposed to hold this up longer.
Give
All right.
the microphone
Yeah.
back to
So
the people.
give the microphone back to the people and enjoy.
All right. Thank you, Jennifer,
Yeah.
for that fantastic report. Now, let's see if any did it do anything. Have we moved? Have we moved up? Wow. Yep. We just got $20, so that's something. Thank you, Linda Dawson, for getting us started on the GoFundMe. That makes 202 people, and we are now at 12,297. Our goal by the end of October is 15,000. So I think we could get there.
Someone said, oh, beanies, and I ordered beanies.
Oh, she ordered beanies too.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we got beanies, stickers, backpacks. I love it. I love it. And eventually we'll be selling. But right now we're giving it as part of your donation. So we want to show you how much we appreciate. So we're definitely sending as much as we can. So thank you. I'll bug you about the GoFundMe a little later on. But I wanted to bring you to the next story here. Now, if you paid attention, before I get to that, I want to do quick on the Republican Party. Of course, we have to go after the Democratic Party because you're never going to get rid of the extremists in the Republican Party if you basically have their milquetoast Republican lights in the opposition party. So the Republican Party, who as soon as Trump got in, started pushing like Reagan/Bush tax cuts on steroids. This tax cut Trump has put in, which they're now trying to make permanent, only for the rich, only for the upper income bracket, has shocker. You know, they said at the time, well, don't worry about the deficit. Don't worry about the debt because tax cuts pay for themselves. Of course, they never pay for themselves. And by the way, I've been getting some messages on MMT. I will be covering MMT at some point. Just haven't had a chance yet, but roll with me. We'll be covering MMT for sure. MMT is modern monetary theory, and a big part of it is that basically deficits and debt don't matter so much. Anyway, so the Republican Party, they gave tax cuts across the board. So if a simpleton Trump supporter says, oh, well, I got a tax cut. Yeah, you got a temporary tax cut that essentially, you know, maybe gives you a slightly bigger take-home pay, and you know, your rich uncle got to buy another yacht. That's Republican economics, by the way. So, how did that tax cut do? How did that tax cut do for the economy? Well, here we go. Budget deficit jumps nearly 17%. 17% in 2018. Deficits matter. When Democrats are in office, deficits matter. Ay vey. The federal budget deficit swelled to $779 billion in fiscal year 2018, the Treasury Department said on Monday, driven in large part by a sharp decline in corporate tax revenues after the Trump tax cuts. But I thought these corporations were going to hire more workers and that brings in more tax revenue. Is that not what happened, Jen?
I don't know.
The deficit rose nearly 17% year over year from $666 billion in 2017. It is now on pace to top $1 trillion a year before the next presidential election, according to forecasts from the Trump administration and outside analysts. The deficit for the 2018 fiscal year, which ended September 30th, was the largest since 2012, when the economy and federal revenues were still recovering from the depths of the recession. Administration officials attributed the deficit's rise to a greater federal spending, including the military and domestic budget increases that President Trump approved this year, not the $1.5 trillion tax cut. Of course, President Trump prioritized making a significant investment in America's military after years of reductions in military spending undermined our preparedness and national security, Steve Mnuchin said. Well, the Democrats helped him get it through. Including Elizabeth Warren, by the way, who just voted in the Senate for that insane defense budget. Going forward, the president's economic policies that have stimulated strong economic growth, no it hasn't, combined with proposals to cut wasteful spending, will lead America toward a sustainable financial path. Well, let me start by saying, I don't really think running deficits are that big of a deal, to tell you the truth. I think it's always been a conservative and a neoliberal talking point, but guess what? To make money, meaning to have a strong economy, you have to spend money. And you have to sometimes fork the money over and invest first to get an infrastructure that continually brings in money. You do that by investing in jobs programs. You do that by making sure middle class taxes aren't crazy or regressive. You do that by making sure you tax wealthy people more because they got wealthy through the American capitalist system. So they should have to pay a little bit more. But deficits are a problem when you are basically creating a more gilded age than the 1920s. It's a problem because guess who pays for it? Do you think these rich people are getting taxes, getting their, hundreds of thousands of dollars for some of these rich people and corporations? They're getting off their taxes. Who do you think pays for that? I'll tell you who pays for it. Because what does Mitch McConnell want? Let's show you what Mitch McConnell said today. I'll have to find it on my Twitter. Give me a second. Who's paying? Who's paying for these rich people's tax cuts and these higher deficits? Do you think it's Donald Trump? You think it's Paul Ryan? Shocker. Hold on. So, what does Mitch McConnell have to say? Mitch McConnell, where is my tweet? Oh, I lost it. Mitch McConnell basically said, well, we got to focus on that entitlement reform. Got to focus on Social Security. Got to focus on Medicare. Got to focus. The rich people need to pay so that the oligarchy can eat more stuffed clams on their new yacht. That's the Republican Party's economic plan. And by the way, the Democratic Party, they don't have a much better answer. Frankly, Obama, if you remember the grand bargain, he was willing to put Social Security on the table. And he didn't. That defense budget was still astronomical. That's right. Bill O'Reilly, I don't know, I can't get over your name. Flint, Michigan pays for it. Sway Ocean, Us and Our Services pays for it. If you want to know who Zachary Kirkpatrick, if you want to know who is paying for it, take a look inside your wallet right now. Yep. Witchy likes my stuffed clams. Who's paying for it? Question is irrelevant. Our money is just zeros in a bank. MMT says we can do whatever we want with the money. I don't completely agree with it, but I get where you're coming from. I think what a lot of people don't understand, and I get criticized and Jimmy gets criticized and all that, I have a strong disdain for the Republican Party. The Republican Party is an extremist. They're not public servants. They're an oligarchy. They are servants for the aristocracy. That's why I want to get rid of them. That's why I want to get rid of extreme conservatism. Why I am harder on the Democratic Party is because strategically, right now in this country, the main way to get rid of them is a strong Democratic candidate. Some of you might not like that, but that's the truth. Well, neoliberalism is Republican light. It's a little nicer as far as immigrants and women and all those things, but economically, there's not a huge difference, folks. And any establishment Democrat telling you there is full of shit, like Max Boot. Okay? So, the Republican Party has gotten away with this hypocrisy, has gotten away with these empty platitudes. Well, the tax cuts will pay for themselves. No, these deficits are going up. And if you think for a second, if the Republicans keep the House of Representatives, if the Republicans keep the Senate, if Trump is reelected in 2020 with nothing to lose, if you don't think that all those houses of Congress and the White House in Republican hands, if you don't think that they're going to take a machete to Social Security and Medicare, which is what Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and all these people have wanted to do forever, because there's a sickness in their mind. They think the real problem in America is rich people don't have enough money and poor people have too much. That rich people work too hard and poor people don't work hard enough. So why it is such a dangerous thing that we don't have a real opposition party. We have a kind of milquetoast version of the Republican Party and the Democratic Party is because eventually they're going to succeed. When there's not another election to worry about, when Trump wins re-election, which right now, if it were today, I think he would win re-election, unless against Bernie Sanders. And if they keep the House and the Senate, they will pass cuts to entitlements. Which is another way of saying you're paying the vulnerable in this country, you're paying so that rich people can buy another yacht and eat stuffed clams 5 days a week. Champagne on the weekends. A mayor says, I don't trust Democrats anymore. I'm done. I hear you. I hear you. Witchy, I think Obama was a neoliberal too. No? Of course he was. Do you see any bankers in jail? He extended the Bush tax cuts for the wealthy. He's as neoliberal as they come. So, as terrible as the Republican Party is, as terrible as the Democratic Party is, if you're beginning to notice in this country, we have a problem with police in this country. We have a big problem with police in this country. And that's part of the reason, thanks to your contributions in the GoFundMe, Ty and I, the first story we did with those contributions where we went down to Dallas. And we covered the heinous story of Botham John, a 26-year-old black man murdered by a white cop who literally just showed up to his apartment, intruded in, and shot him dead. Shot him dead. And the cop's story is, oh, I thought it was my apartment because she lived on the third floor. He lived right above. So I interviewed Botham's minister, his friends, activists who were arrested and put in jail for 40 hours for protesting on his behalf. I interviewed a Dallas city councilman who has been speaking out against the lack of transparency. They haven't released the 911 call. They haven't released her police records. They haven't released her toxicology report. Nothing. So yesterday I interviewed Lee Merritt. He is Botham's attorney. We're going to put the full interview up, but I wanted to play you just a snippet because not only will it show you that it is an asinine defense that the police are cooking up, that she thought it was her apartment and probably they're going to come out with she feared for her life, which they always say. But what Lee told me, I didn't know, and maybe you don't know, that police departments all around the country are helping officers involved in these shootings where they kill unarmed black men with scrubbing their social media, which, shocker, have a lot of pro-police and, frankly, anti-Black Lives Matter stuff. Let me play you this. It's only him. You'll hear my voice. You won't see me, but you'll hear him. And this is Lee Merritt, Botham's attorney. You know, I want to read a line from the arrest affidavit. There was a search warrant affidavit and then an arrest affidavit within, I think, 2 or 3 days of each other. The stories dramatically changed. I haven't seen much talked about with this particular line, but to me it doesn't make sense. It says Geiger turned on the interior lights while on the phone with 911. Upon being asked where she was located by emergency dispatchers, Geiger returned to the front door to observe the address and discovered she was at the wrong apartment. Well, if you thought it was your apartment, what, obviously there's adrenaline. She just shot someone, but why is it that if she thought it was her apartment, she had to get up, walk to the door, and look at the number, and that's when the light bulb went off that it wasn't her apartment?
Yeah, that always very, 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 very strange to me that she's on the phone with dispatch. They ask her what's her address. And we know that those calls are going to be recorded, so they couldn't change the narrative there dramatically. So she pauses, she goes back to look at the apartment number and says, "Hey, this isn't my apartment number." It's very, very, very strange, but it's not inconsistent with the oddities of that evening. Law enforcement officers are trained to observe, but you don't have to be a trained observer to know that you're standing on a big, bright red rug that is not at your apartment complex. In her first version of events, she put things down as she tried to go to the door. So she put things down near her feet where she would have been standing on a red rug. It's not in front of her carpet. It's not in front of her apartment. A big, bright, illuminated apartment number next to theirs. That apartment complex, the Southside Flats, goes out of their way to really highlight what apartment number you're in. There's the red indicator on the door. When you put your key into the wrong light, into the wrong lock, it flashes red to let you know, again, not your apartment. And then you're right. Once you're inside of the apartment, number one, as soon as you enter this particular apartment, the lights are to the right. And if it's so dark that you can't see the details of your apartment, most people naturally, their natural instinct is to hit those lights to illuminate the apartment. It's the first thing available to enter. And then, assuming she didn't do that, the moment she hit those lights, then her apartment would have been illuminated, and she could see all around that nothing in his apartment was consistent with hers. He was a very religious man. He had a number of religious signage around his home. His apartment was different. It smelled like a bachelor's pad. Even when I went in there days after he was murdered, it still smelled like men's cologne. And he had his bachelor furniture, and he didn't do his dishes very well. And it was just a different apartment, right? So.
And I wanted to ask you, it seems to me she had days to go home, scrub her social media from, I don't know if this is true or not, but something I read, she had a Pinterest account where there was some things on there that kind of echoed a little of, not in these words, but a little Blue Lives Matter and, police superiority. Besides the fact that they have not released the 911 call, is this common where an officer involved in a shooting would be given that kind of time and would be allowed to scrub social media or anything like that?
Yeah, it's quite common in cases of law enforcement officers, and we're dealing with cases very similar to the Merritt Bolton, where law enforcement officers are given every break, every leeway possible. They're given a chance when there is body camera footage to review that, to craft their narrative around it, to scrub their social media. In the scrubbing of the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, it does appear that they looked over the Pinterest account. My sources, my investigators have been able to verify that at least that wasn't a new account, it wasn't a mock account, that it was an account that existed for years for a police officer in Dallas County named Geiger. And so our verification mechanisms have confirmed that was her account. And there were some very scary things on that account. She bragged about being violent, being short-tempered. She bragged about use of force, she spoke out adamantly against things like kneeling, and said the NFL died of colon cancer, or referring to Colin Kaepernick. She said people were lucky that when she went through the week without killing someone or stabbing someone in the neck. She expressed some very, very dark thoughts. She celebrated one shot, one kill, and this militarization of law enforcement. And Roy Oliver, and some of those kind of deep, dark thoughts that expressed themselves in social media came out during the trial. They were very powerful. I believe those will play a role in Ms. Geiger's trial as well.
Right. And, if you can't reveal some of this, that's fine. But I wanted to ask. So that's some of my interview with Lee Merritt. He's the attorney for Botham Jean. I think some of you said it was buffering, so we'll have the full interview up on the channel. Ty's working on that. But first of all, as he said, it doesn't make any sense that this officer thought it was her apartment. Both of them had a red welcome mat in front of his apartment. And the other thing is, in the arrest affidavit, it says that when 911 asked what's her address, she got up and went to the front door to look at the number. Well, if you thought it was your apartment, you know your address. Most people know their address. And you probably, when you turn the lights on, would have seen that it's not your apartment by the different furniture, maybe some pictures around. It's preposterous. The whole thing is preposterous. But the terrible thing, if you didn't see what he was saying, the very dangerous thing is he was talking about the systemic pattern where police essentially give the officers involved in these shootings time to go home and scrub their social media. Amber Geiger, in a Pinterest account that was not scrubbed, I guess she forgot to get rid of this one. It had stuff against NFL players kneeling, which is obviously an issue where black players were kneeling against, to protest police brutality and to ask for reform. This is why Colin Kaepernick has been blackballed. This officer had that stuff on her social media against the players kneeling. She had a lot of stuff about, police superiority and, how many kills they had in the year. Some pretty very big stuff that could be used at trial. But why would the police allow her the time to go back and scrub her social media if they didn't know there was troubling things on there that they wanted to get rid of? So hopefully there is forensics and they retrieve the stuff that was on her social media that goes to her mindset. Because from the stuff that was left up, it shows a pattern where this officer has an issue with black people. This officer had an issue with black athletes protesting against police brutality. And I believe her social media also shows that she had a big chip on her shoulder, that police are the sheriffs in town, and you better obey. That is what I think. So, from that story, and I'll continue updating you as developments come on the Botham Jean case. That's why I went down there, so that I could meet activists on the ground, so I could meet his attorney, so I could meet politicians that are actually trying to do the right thing down there. I'm not a one-trick pony. Most of these stories, if you remember from the Young Turks, I don't go once. I continue to go back. It's not always the stories that go super viral or equal, incredible clicks, but I think they're very important stories, and I think that's how we're going to build a successful media network, by covering the stories that matter, and by definitely, right now we're looking for funding so that we keep going out there and covering these stories, but definitely our model long-term is going to be paid membership. So again, thank you to everybody who's been contributing to GoFundMe. I've been keeping in touch with people down in Dallas to continue updating you on this. And as I have updates on the investigation, if there is an actual investigation going on, to me, it appears that there's a bit of a sham investigation going on, but I would be glad to be wrong on that. So we'll see. So moving on to one more story. Jordan, aren't police supposed to go to training for public relations? Police departments, which I'm about to tell you, they have their own PR department, and it's pretty damn disturbing, the nonsense they're showing. So, in addition to Botham Jean, I covered while I was down in Texas the case of O'Shea Terry. Was a 24-year-old black man. He got pulled over with his friend Terrence Harmon, basically for expired registration. the registration was expired for 2 days. A police officer, the original police officer that was talking to O'Shea at the driver's seat, was actually relatively calm and, approached him calmly. When she went back to her police vehicle to enter in his birth date and name and all that stuff, another police officer was talking about, we're going to have to check your car for marijuana, which O'Shea had already told the first police officer that he had. And before you know it, O'Shea Terry, basically, he drove off, which he shouldn't have done. He was fleeing. This other police officer literally jumped on the guardrail and shot inside the car 5 times and killed him. So I'm going to show you that one more time. Then I'm going to show you at a community meeting what the officer there, the nonsense she was spewing to me, because I reached out to the police department down in Arlington, Texas, to ask them why haven't they released the name of this officer, and also what is the protocol? Is an officer supposed to respond to somebody fleeing by jumping on the car and shooting inside 5 times? No, they're not. I've already reported to you what the actual protocol is, but just if you don't know the story, let me show you the video and this other thing before I tell you what the Arlington Police Department had to say to me.
What are you upset about?
It's hot. Well, I'm staying outside here. You know? Like I said, if you don't have any more inside the vehicle, y'all should be worried about it. You know? We just have to do what we have to do. So that's basically it. Hey! Hey, stop! Stop! Stop the car, man! Stop the car!
Hey, it's Jordan. I'm live in Arlington, Texas. We're at... What is the police procedure for a driver running away and not adhering to commands? Is it to... Police procedure for a driver running away and not adhering to commands? Is it to shoot out their tires? Is it to get a helicopter, or is it to shoot into the car? What is the general protocol for that kind of situation?
So, in regards to your first question, I know that the community is frustrated that we haven't released his name. I hear that all the time from people. Why haven't we released his name? Why haven't we released his name? And I hear that. We've gotten threats. We're not prepared to release that information about what those threats are. I know that people feel that there is a double standard when it relates to the treatment of officers versus the treatment of people in the community. But at this point, we're just not prepared to release his name based on the information that we have. That doesn't mean that we won't release it later. But right now, we're just not prepared to do it. That doesn't mean that we won't. Okay? And I know that people are frustrated with that. But right now, that is our stance. And as it relates to your second question about what our tactics are, I don't want to be misquoted. So if you want to know what our tactics are, you're more than welcome to go and file an open records request to get a copy of what we teach as it relates to tactics and things like that and dealing with people on traffic stops.
So you don't want to be misquoted. You can't just generally say, is the protocol or the general process to shoot out a tire, to call for backup if they're driving away? I mean,
we have a variety of tactics at our disposal in dealing with people when we were on traffic stops. I'm too far.
So I don't even know where to begin with that. I've showed that before, but I wanted to re-show it if not everyone's familiar with it. So first of all, just a memo to the Arlington Police Department and police in general. You can't be misquoted if there's a camera on you. I mean, somebody could write it up and misquote you, but there's the video evidence, so you could go back and be like, you misquoted me. It's a very simple thing. So that was bullshit right there. But, of course, her insane response, it was nonsense. And they purposely sent her because she's not actually involved with the criminal investigation. So she kept answering, well, I'm not involved with the investigation, so I can't answer you. And one woman there so righteously said, then why are you here? In a very angry tone. And the people there were angry, mostly black people. And they're scared. because their boys keep getting killed by the police, and there is zero consequences. So I reached out to the police department there. They got back to me with an even more ridiculous response. So I hope you could read this. It might be a little small print. A public service announcement. We just purchased a program with the contributions you've been giving on GoFundMe, where Ty could actually operate the live stream from Los Angeles while I'm live, meaning he could put in all the video clips, he could put in full screen graphics like this and make it bigger. So our production is about to get much bigger. He's figuring out the program this week, and we're going to start it next week. So apologies if you can't read that email. I've blacked out the email address of the officer. I've blocked out my email address because I get way too many emails as it is. But wanna read you what they told me. I asked, how is it that they say that originally she said the officer has been receiving threats, and I asked there, and I asked again in this email, how is the officer receiving threats if you haven't revealed the officer's name? That doesn't make any sense. I also asked, what is the protocol for shooting out for if someone is fleeing? So this guy, Lieutenant Christopher Cook, gets back to me. Would have preferred to talk to you before participating in another story related to this topic to provide some context. They always want to provide you context, meaning spin, and try to control reporters. They can't control me, though. Without being able to discuss this incident on the phone to provide clarity, I will offer the following comments on the record so that it is reflected that we responded to your initial inquiry. It's important to note that I was not in attendance at the event and was out of town at a law enforcement conference, blah, 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 blah. So number one, he said, I reviewed video footage of the NAACP meeting and did not see where Deputy Chief Carol Riddle used the terminology death threats. When James Hawthorne, the NAACP Criminal Justice Chair, asked Chief Riddle about why the name has not been released, she said that we have released the employee's photograph based upon credible threats that have been received. I don't know what he's talking about. They haven't released the photograph of the employee, and I don't know what the credible threats are. I didn't know until I spoke with him on the phone, so I'll tell you about that in a second. Number two, the concerning posts that have been received came in on Facebook and Twitter. Some of these posts may be very well protected free speech, even if they are concerning to us. However, we will err on the side of caution when dealing with employee safety. That does not mean that we will never identify the officer. Quite the contrary. We could identify the officer after we determine that there have been no more recent concerning posts that could appear in a threatening manner. And he also answered me because I asked if this officer is in such danger, if all these things are true, does he have a protective detail around him? Does he have police security around him? And they told me the employee does not have a protection detail. So that's the response. Now, when he called me back. We spoke, to give him credit, in fairness. Sounded like a nice guy. Was feeding me bullshit, and I think he knew it was bullshit. And sometimes PR people, because I've dealt with PR people in my career, sometimes they tell you things like they know this isn't exactly true, but they're just doing their job, so work with me. I'm trying to get you the best information, but I gotta also help my organization lie and spin the truth. That's kind of how public relations with the media works. But when we spoke on the phone, he actually cleared things up, actually. So number one, he didn't say off the record. So he actually told me, frankly, the officer that they sent said a lot of things inaccurately and said a lot of things that, frankly, weren't correct. So he kind of threw Miss Riddle under the bus a little bit in our conversation. He said, which she gave off the impression at that meeting that I showed you the video, that they are not releasing the police officer's name because there's been credible threats against the police officer. And that's why I asked, well, how are the threats against the police officer when nobody knows who he is? Well, Lieutenant Cooks corrected that for me and said that the threats that have been made are against the police department on social media, not the specific officer. So I said to him, that's all good and well, but in every single case in America where there's an officer that has shot a black man, usually unarmed, whether you agree with threats going to the officer or not, there is always threats made against the officer as well as the police department. That is the nature of free speech. Now, so I asked him, if there's threats coming against the police department on social media, and he gave me a few accounts that he said have been sending the threats. Well, what is the bar here? What is the bar? You're not gonna release it now, but you're gonna release it later? Like, how do you decide when the threat is over? Because I said to him, common sense would dictate you're gonna have to eventually release the officer's name, and once you do, you're gonna get more threats. So you're erring on the side of caution, but you're going to have to release his name, and you're going to keep getting threats. So that doesn't make sense to me. So there's three problems with that. Number one, when he's saying we're erring on the side for employee safety, well, it doesn't seem you're taking steps to err on the side of public safety and community safety. Which is your priority? Your employee safety or the public safety? More specifically, black men in Arlington County and black men in America, because the same statement can be made for all police departments. When black men are being massacred on now a weekly basis in America by police, and you're saying, well, we have to take caution. We have to take caution for our police and our police department. Yeah, of course you want to protect your police officers, but that is giving off the impression that your priority is protecting your own and not the public. The public pays your checks, pal. The public pays your checks, including the black men that you're killing. So that answer that we're erring on the side of caution for the officer, well, guess what? You have to be transparent, which he said he actually understood. He understood why people are so upset about not releasing this officer's name. And without saying it, he basically said to me, that's not his decision, which usually is like, I think we should, but it ain't up to me. So that's the first problem. What are your priorities? To protect your officer that just killed someone as he was driving away and not any threat to the officer? You saw the video. Or is it to protect the public? Number two, are you not releasing the person's name because there's credible threats to the police department? Or are you not releasing the person's name because he's got troubling police record, he's got troubling history, either with things he has said, things he has done, if he's had any other shootings, and you're preparing time for a cover-up? That's another reason that you wouldn't want to release an officer's name if that officer has a really bad story attached to them. Victoria Thomas says he lost his right to anonymity when he massacred a person. Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more with that. And number three, what, I don't want to be insensitive because I am not a police officer. I do know police officers, but at a certain point, like, you become a police officer, you take on the risk, both in going out into the street and possibly not coming home. And also, you might, as a department, receive threats, especially when you keep massacring black men. So this whole, there's threats against the police department on social media. Like I said, if you think the threats are bad now, when you eventually have to release the person's name, they're only going to get worse. So it's very selective. Well, we don't want to release the name now because we have a few threats. Well, then you would never release his name because you're going to keep getting threats. It doesn't make sense. And one could only conclude that they are trying to protect this officer because this officer has a very troubling record. That is my speculation based on common sense. But it is an insult to the black community in Arlington that is deathly afraid that their son is next. If you watch that video, it's up on the YouTube channel, there are mothers deathly afraid that their kids aren't coming home. Their boys aren't coming home. It is a slap in the face. You are telling them your priority is to protect your own, not the public. And when you were saying we've received credible threats via social media, well, how do you determine what's a credible threat and what's not? How are you determining that? What? And I asked him, how are you determining that? What is the threat? Wouldn't say. So, as we've seen with both of them, John, where they won't release the 911 call, they won't release the toxicology report, they won't release her police records, they let her scrub her social media, and in this case, this happened, O'Shea Terry happened on September 1st. Won't release the officer's name. We have not a police department, a police cover-up in this country. And I have a friend who's a police officer, and I know some police officers. They're not all bad. But if you want to say they need better training, yeah, they do. And frankly, they need some psychological evaluation, because a lot of these cops most of these cops actually have subconscious and in some cases conscious racial animus and irrational fear against black men. And that's why this keeps happening. Our politicians are doing nothing about it. Obama didn't do anything about it. Trump sure as hell ain't doing anything about it. It's only gotten worse under Trump. So that's what we need. And I'll continue updating you, as best I can from New York. That's why I reached out to the Arlington Police Department. That's why I interviewed Lee Merritt. Those interviews will be up. Before I go, I'm going to push this GoFundMe one more time. You could tell me if I'm being annoying, but can't get what you don't ask for. So right now, we're still at $12,297. We're trying to reach 15,000 by the end of October. Thank you. 202 people. As a reminder, $50 gets you a mini swag bag. $100 gets you a Status Quo shirt or hat. $127 gets you a Status Quo hat and shirt. $200 gets you a full swag bag and a hoodie. And $1,000 gets you a pony, a Status Quo pony. Thank you for contributing. Keep it coming. I know it's sometimes hard to keep that urgency. Sometimes you're more inclined to want to donate. Like on my birthday, we got really great donations. And some days, maybe less so, more cash strapped, whatever. But I've already shown you what this money is going to. I don't talk the talk, we walk the walk. We're already talking to some folks about the next trip to take. And if you can't contribute, as always, share the videos. That's super, super important. So, before I go, take a few comments, questions, concerns. Sorry, Jordan, got off topic. That's okay. Higher education is filled with propaganda you have to dissect from your lips to the non-existent God's ears. Victoria Thomas, thank you for your reporting, Jordan. Thank you for your viewership. MR Black, the police state is Trump's Gestapo soldiers. Yep. Frankly, they were Obama's too. Boo Fry, is it Boo Fry?
Fire.
Boo Fire OG, I want a pony. Boo Fire.
Julie's getting a pony. She earned one.
Julie's getting a pony?
Yeah.
Is that who Boo Fire is?
Fire.
Oh, Julie, you're getting a pony. She contributed a lot. Hell of a lot. I'll get you a pony. Witchy, yeah, postmodernism has taken hold of many liberal arts departments. I agree. And also, email Jordan at protonmail.com if you've contributed the $100. Email your shirt size. If you've contributed 127, email your shirt size and your head size. So and your address and your mailing address. We need your mailing address to send all this stuff out to you. And also, if you have ideas for stories, something going on in your neck of the woods, email Jordan at protonmail.com. Thank you for watching. Remember, most people aren't lacking compassion. Most people have no fucking idea what's happening. Peace out.